Welcome to Larp Academia, my friends. Today we are going to talk about the obstacles of Belegarth. Now that you're excited, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. What might make you say that, I'm very interested in this. I like the idea of what Belegarth was. Check out our video if you're still unsure about that. And I want to know, what will I have to do to get into this Larp? What are the actual problems? And for you, we have a few different categories that we're going to go into, and they'll be rated on a difficulty of 1 through 5. 1 being, this isn't a problem, why are you even thinking about it? And 5 being, oh dear God, you had better be either rich, super experienced, or be in for the long haul. So, without further ado, let's go into the obstacles that you, my friend, will have to deal with. The first one is gear. Now, I've been waving around this sword, and you'll need a sword for Belegarth. If you've seen our video on what Belegarth is, you'll figure out, hey, I'm going to be swinging a lot of this, or I'm going to be stabbing someone with a pole, or I'm going to be shooting with a bow. And for just a general person to get a two-handed weapon, a sword and board, or something simple, not for you archers are you rich people, it's only about 20 to 50 bucks. It could actually be about 20 bucks if you go out there and say, hey, I'm going to get a PVC pipe, I'm going to put some camp pad on it, and I'm going to whack people with it, and for my shield, I'm going to find a piece of wood and put some camp pad over it, and I'll be fine. Now that can be extraordinarily cheap, actually. It could be probably around $10, to be honest. But you will want better. And not only will you want better, but the culture in Belegarth is a little bit different than some other LARPs regarding gear. In a lot of other LARPs, they have the culture of, hey, you got that awesome thing? Oh, how'd you make it? Oh, how'd you make it? Did you make your own weapon? Oh, here's how I make it. Here's how you make it. And there's a lot of saying that I craft my own stuff in different LARPs. In Belegarth, no. Generally, what happens is you find someone who's good at what they do, and instead of making the painstaking journey of a decade of starting to get better and starting out as a lowly plebeian who makes a sword that's about the weight of a tree and garb that is, you look better, honestly, and more medieval in a normal t-shirt. If you instead, people in Belegarth say, hey, we're going to bypass all that and just pay someone who knows what they're doing. And that's the culture. Is generally, you'll pay someone to get a nicer tunic if you actually care about that. You'll pay someone to get a nicer sword, or, well, this is gear, so nicer equipment. You'll pay someone to make your arrows, etc. And that's generally the culture in Belegarth. You could not do that, and it could be very cheap, but I'm putting it at a 2.5 instead of a 2 to low 1, because in reality, you're going to be spending a bit more, especially if you embrace the culture of Belegarth. Now, the second obstacle that you have in any LARP is acquiring the proper threads. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, some LARPs are saying that, you have to come in and have a full costume and garb, and you have to be able to... No. And Belegarth is literally, hey, come in with the tunic, and if you can, pants, we don't really care, but a tunic is kind of nice. What is a tunic? Well, find an old shirt that you hate, rip it up, cut it a little bit, and you, my friend, have a tunic. Or just cut off the sleeves, and now you have a tunic. It's a very simple and easy thing to do. Garb is a joke for how much difficulty you need to acquire garb in Belegarth versus other LARPs, and really, in Belegarth, it's not the most important thing in the world. If you want to look good, well, of course, you'll be in that culture that we talked about and pay someone to make some fine threads for you so that you'll be wearing a stylish a bit more stylish than this, of course, and it's not a very big barrier to entry. If you want garb eventually, sure, you can get it, but it's very unimportant. Now, experience. This is a problem in many LARPs. There are some LARPs which just accumulate points, where it's just, I've been playing for 20 years and I have about 600 points. What do you have, 20? No, Blade, be my stepping stool. And that's honestly the best option that you can do in the entire game, just be someone's stepping stool, or just trying to specialize in something, but you're not good at it. In Belegarth, there is no systemic issue with that, or no systemic progression or anything, so you won't have any problems with a new person coming in versus a veteran. A veteran can be better than a new player, and a new player can be better than a veteran. It's interchangeable. The only thing that's important is your actual skill in combat, and this is where it is a little bit difficult. You can't just walk in and say, hi, I'm new Timmy, and then there's old Vagrant over there who comes over gruff and is just able to fight at a duel to new Timmy. No. The experience actually matters, which is a good thing. It's it's almost bad when the experience goes to 1. So 2 is very appropriate, where it matters how skilled you are. It matters how good you are as a person, but the system says nothing else on it. Not really. It doesn't give you a limitation based on levels, XP, or anything like that. So experience being a 2 difficulty to a barrier of entry is actually pretty good, since your skill does really matter. Now, the last barrier of entry that we have is roleplay. In some LARPs, it's you have to come in and you better know your character's name, their backstory, everything about them, what they had for lunch the next day, and by the next day I mean what they're planning to have the next day. You better know everything about that. And there are some LARPs to this degree. Belegarth is not one of them. Belegarth is very odd in their roleplay. It's literally to the point of you can come in and say, hey, my name's Dave, and they say, oh, hey, Dave. All right, that's your game name, cool. And so, well, game name, what is that? Oh, just come on, Dave, and then they'll have you play. Their role play is not necessary at all. If you want, though, you can go hardcore into role play. You can actually really acquire awesome threads. You can make your own stuff. You can get your face painted. Most people actually do get their face painted when they role play. When people role play in Belegarth, they actually take it to a new level, and they're very good at disclosing when something is done in character and when something is not done in character. It's actually very strange that a system that doesn't have any roleplay built into it has people who are so good at roleplay when they actually do it. It's very surprising overall, but you don't need to roleplay. It's a 1 in difficulty because the majority of people are not like that. There might be 5 to 10% of people, and that's maybe stretching it a little bit, that do roleplay, and they're only going to roleplay when they're engaged in a roleplay scenario. They're not going to come up to you and say, I'm Vagron. How are you doing today, puny human? Pretending they're an orc with tux or something. They'll have tusks on and they'll just talk normal, and they'll say, oh, hey, how you doing, Dave? And then if you say, oh, I'm actually Jordgar the barbarian, they say, oh, well, Jordgar. And then they start to get into that role play scenario. So you can role play, and you can have fighting companies and other things that you can have as guilds and other stuff, but it is not necessary to get into Belegarth. It's not an obstacle at all, and you really don't have to worry about that. Now, the last barrier to entry is kind of an extra one. This is because of this particular LARP, and that is the physicality. We talked about that a little bit in what Belegarth is, that it's more physical, and that is something you really have to consider before getting into Belegarth, is that, or even when you go, you'll find this out very quickly, is that people will not have a second thought about shield bashing you, about kicking your shield when you're legged, about going and grappling is rare, but people will still do it to you. It is part of the game. So you will have to deal with this increase in physicality. Also, even if you're not dealing with all that stuff, when people have two-handed weapons, we'll go over that in the next video, they will need to strike with more force. So it will possibly make it more of an impact on your shield arm, and if you have an injured shoulder like I do, it may cause a potential issue that makes you unable to constantly do this LARP. So it's something to really consider. This is the only major deal breaker, is the increase in physicality, and the lack of the system is dependent on each person, but the lack of the complexity of the system. And those are really the barriers of entry. But I would love to hear what you think about the barriers of entry for Belegarth. Are they too high? Are they way too astronomically low? Is the physicality a deal breaker for you? Or is something else? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding that notification bell so that you can stay informed and learn how to actually play Belegarth in our next video. So, until next time, keep LARPing.